What is up? What is up? It is UFC 314 picks, predictions, all of the sort. We got Volkanovski versus Lopes in the main event. And then we got Cheater Chandler versus Paddy the Baddie Pimblett. All right, this is a stacked card. Do not know where Fight of the Night is going on this one. It could be a lot of different matchups that it could go to Darren, Elkins, Julian, Erosa for all we know. It could go to anyone. It's up in the air. So a lot of money on the table here for these guys. That being said, we were out last week. I had to take a short break for bereavement. I just wanted to say I appreciate all of you sending those messages, giving condolences to my family. Really appreciate that. But with that being said, let's get into the fight, shall we? We're going to go in first and check out Nora Cornoli versus Haley Cohen. I'm going to go with Nora Cornoli, and the odds makers definitely, I think, got this right. It's a close fight. Both coming off pretty similar in terms of skill level. I'd say Cavalcanti, who just recently beat Cornoli, is probably a little bit better, whereas Haley Cohen lost to Jamie Lynn Horth, who's also pretty good, very active cardio fighter. Gave Miranda Maverick a bit of a tough time. But that being said, I just think Nora Cornoli with the KO threat, the TKO threat with the Muay Thai, it's going to give Haley Cohen a lot of problems. And yeah, the age difference isn't really that huge. The reach and height advantage isn't really that huge. So I'm going to give it to the side who I know is going to cause more damage. And also actually has UFC wins, whereas Haley Cohen got a split decision in her Contender Series fight and lost her debut. I just think Cornoli is going to try to correct coming off a really difficult opponent who is a lot longer than her, who's going to stay on the outside. I just don't think that's how Haley Cohen is going to be able to pull this off. So going to go with Cornoli here. Next we got Tresean Gore returning versus Marco Tulio. Tresean Gore coming off 2 guillotine wins. Marco Tulio dispatching Ihor Potieria, just absolutely destroying him with that knockout. And honestly, I think he's going to do it again. Marco Tulio is a dangerous, dangerous middleweight with the power. And I think Tresean Gore has a few problems. The injuries. Man gets injured a decent bit at a pretty young age. He was getting hurt during his Ultimate Fighter tenure, which is why he couldn't participate in the initial finale. Had to fight Brian Battle later. And also the activity during the fight. Commentators point this out. He doesn't get going fast enough. He's not active enough. And he's probably going to look to grapple Marco Tulio. And I just don't think that this is also, let's just point out of all these cards that have been happening recently with insane odds, they finally got odds that are probably pretty reasonable to be pretty wide. Marco Tulio is similar age, similar height and build, but much more experience than Tresean Gore. That's something I've always just had to worry for Tresean, is just the lack of experience and activity. When you're at this age and at that record, you need to get going, man. You need to get going. And I just don't think enough things are going to go in his way. I don't think a guillotine is going to happen. I definitely think Gore is going to try to grapple, and I think Marco Tulio is just going to be able to defend takedowns and probably, I think, knock out Tresean Gore, if I'm being honest here. So, betting on a Marco Tulio second round knockout. Second round knockout is what I'm predicting. Next, we got Sumudaerji versus Mitch Raposo. Pretty good matchup here. A lot of people were high up on Mitch Raposo during his Ultimate Fighter stint. Tried to get him through the Contender Series. Lost to Jake Hadley. Not a bad loss. And it's funny because these guys actually have opposite builds, but similar-ish styles, whereas they actually both like to use a lot of footwork and move at angles around the outside of the cage, which makes this very interesting, the fact they have different styles. But the thing that I think stands out is that Sumudaerji his hips are so open to double legs, it's insane. The way he steps in with it too, where he won't throw it in his normal, he'll step through with it. It always leaves him open for that duck under into the double leg, which Mr. Raposo showed that he could do against a Jake Hadley. And I don't think Sumudaerji is going to have the jiu-jitsu of Jake Hadley. And I think Mitch Raposo is going to be able to actually be faster. He knows how to angle out to like kind of close that distance to make sure if Sumudaerji is keeping him out to the outside, he can make a new angle to try to get in. And he can also just wait for Sumudaerji to throw first and try to get that takedown off of it. And I'm actually surprised. Maybe I'm not too surprised. It's a moderate favorite, so nothing too crazy. So probably makes a little bit of sense that Sumudaerji, because Mitch obviously has stumbled a little bit on his way through the UFC here and there. But Mitch Raposo, there's a reason he was picked first in the Ultimate Fighter. He was very green on the Ultimate Fighter, but highly touted because of his skills, and obviously a lot of flyweights are like that. So I think this is going to be a very interesting fight. This is a really cool fight in my opinion. So I'm actually going to go with the underdog Mitch Raposo here. I think he's going to be able to outpoint Sumudaerji, may even be able to get a submission. I think a lot of that has been exposed recently with the Matt Schnell fight and the Tim Elliott fight. Mitch Raposo could get an arm triangle. He has one on his rear. It's long ago. His grappling more so was at the beginning of his career, but we could see that come back out for this. We could see a submission, but I think we'll probably see a decision win from Mitch Raposo. Next, we got what I think is a tough fight to predict. This is probably one of the tougher fights. This and the next one. Cedric Dumas versus Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. This is a tough fight to predict, mainly because I don't know what style Dumas comes in with for fights a lot of the time. Because initially when he came into the UFC, he was known as a striker. Like his Contender Series fight kind of expressed that for me. A lot of his fights after that. But then you see him fight Dennis Tululin, and he's going for a lot of grappling and a lot of takedowns. Got 3 takedowns. Dennis Tululin got 3 on him. So it's making me wonder, is he going to try and take a MMA approach from here on out? Is he really going to try and like mix the styles, and that's what he's doing? Because the man's got a great jab. He's got a lot of good long range tools, and that's going to be helpful with that 5 inches of reach. But I wonder where his style and game plan is going. It's interesting to watch how he's developing, because it seems like a lot of the times he's kind of learning on the job, which is a little strange. Whereas Mikhail Oleksiejczuk been through the ringer, 3 losses in a row, sadly, to tough competition. You got Michel Pereira, Kevin Holland, and most recently I think Shara Magomedov, Bullet, and Cedric Dumas has got a lot of info to go off of with those 3 losses, and it's kind of making me want to pick him as the underdog here. But you never know with Oleksiejczuk. He can come out of nowhere and starch some dude. But I think the lack of variety in Oleksiejczuk, and I think the fact that Dumas' mindset and how he's approaching fights is changing, I think we're going to see a very different Dumas than what we've seen in other fights. I think we really are going to see something that has developed over time and is going to be able to expose Mikhail. I think he's going to try and take an MMA approach here, and I think he could outpoint Mikhail over the 3 rounds. But we'll see, man. This is a tough one. Because Dumas, he could have a similar, if he's been working on the jiu-jitsu, something like a Kevin Holland finish could come out of nowhere. But this is a scary fight to bet on here. I don't like this one. I really don't like this one. I think the Marco Tulio one is great to put in a parlay. And Mitch Raposo, I think, is a great underdog bet. But this one's a little bit tougher to predict because Dumas is just very, very hard to predict what kind of Dumas you're going to see. But I am going to pick him. I think Mikhail, he's been slipping lately. And I don't think the wear and tear on his body is going to be helping either. And this 5-inch reach disadvantage is going to be tough. So I'm going with Cedric Dumas. I think he's going to be able to keep him outside with the strikes. I think his jab's going to be working good. I think he's going to try and grapple, too. I think he's seen how the grappling is a big hole in Oleksiejczuk's game. But we'll see. We'll see. And now, talking about fights that are hard to predict. Darren Elkins, 29-11 versus Julian Erosa, 30-11. Both men. Oh, no, man. Yeah, Darren Elkins at a plus 300 at 40 years old. I am going to pick Julian Erosa. I think Darren Elkins is not going to be able to get the takedowns he wants. My only worry is that Julian Erosa is going to go for too many headlocks. And he's going to expose himself to takedowns. It's crazy because we got a guy who specializes Erosa in these front headlock finishes, the darces, the guillotines. But we got Darren Elkins, who is an elite scrambler, elite submission defense, who is very hard to take out with those front headlock chokes. This is a very hard man to submit. In fact, how many submission losses out of the 29-11 fights? That's a lot. You can think maybe like 1 submission lost one time. Like that's a difficult man to submit right there and to knock out. And both these guys can take a lot of damage, too. Julian Erosa maybe can be a little touch and go at times with his chin. But in this case, at this point in Darren Elkins' career, I think this is a good matchup to choose for him. But I think Julian Erosa is going to have the takedown defense. He's going to have the length. He's going to keep Darren Elkins on the outside. And when they do clash together, when Darren Elkins tries to grapple, I think Julian Erosa is going to just play it smart. He might pull the front headlock for a second, but he's going to do that to create a scramble to get back up. So I think I'm going to take Julian Erosa here, and probably would be also good to take into your parlay as well. Next, speaking of good parlay picks here, you got Chase the Dream Hooper versus Jim Miller. Yeah, you hate to see Chase just keep getting fed these old dudes. No disrespect to Jim Miller, because out of all the old men in the UFC, Jim Miller's up there, man. I think I put him pretty high up in my tier list, too, for fighters over 40 in the UFC. He might have been a B or a B tier, or an A tier even. Really, really cool dude, Jim Miller. I like him a lot. And the fact that he's ranked number 37 worldwide at 41 years old is an accomplishment in and of itself. But Chase Hooper, it's gonna be a lot similar to the Clay Guida fight, the Vyacheslav Borshev fight, in my opinion. Jim Miller's gonna have I think a little bit better jiu-jitsu. Clay Guida does like no jiu-jitsu. Homie does like none. He is almost a pure wrestler. It's not a great style to go against Chase Hooper with, because any point if Chase Hooper on bottom or top, it's a problem. Jim Miller is going to have to rely on landing in the boxing, and Chase Hooper has gotten a lot better. He's longer, and I think he's going to go to the grappling quick. I think he might even try to do standing headlocks to maybe get some sort of scramble going and maybe duck under into a takedown once Jim Miller tries to pull his head out. It's going to be a little bit harder for Chase to get under Jim, being, the taller man. We'll see how he decides to go about it. But who knows? I just think the grappling advantage is going to be really too great. I think Chase Hooper at 155 has a lot more power. We saw that with the Borshev knockdown. And once they get to the ground, Chase Hooper's got nasty ground and pound. You will never be able to tell with this M&M-eating dude when looking like a kid out of high school. But this man can ground and pound. So I think Chase Hooper is going to take this one and probably sadly finish Jim Miller. And we got to start getting Jim Miller some more appropriate matchups here, because feeding Chase these old men is starting to become a little inappropriate, in my opinion. We're going to have to start calling elderly abuse agencies, all right? So let's chill out with that. Next, we got Verna Jandiroba versus Xiaonan. Verna Jandiroba definitely surging through this strawweight division. Most recently going against, who was it? Amanda Lemos with that beautiful armbar, beating Lupita Godinez, Marina Rodriguez, and Angela Hill before that. And then losing to Amanda Hebos, and that was down at strawweight when Amanda came down. Amanda, definitely tough when she comes down to strawweight. That's not easy at all. So this is a nice little 4-fight win streak, especially when you think, oh man, that Angela Hill win was in 2022. That feels like a long time ago. But that being said, Amanda Lemos is a great win. And really, Verna is just only going to have to worry about the striking here. Yan Xiaonan obviously coming off of Zhang Wei Li, I'm pretty sure was the most recent bout. I don't think she had a bout in between that, did she? Oh yeah, but Tabitha Ritchie, of course, I forgot that. But Tabitha Ritchie is not Verna Jandiroba. Verna Jandiroba's grappling is a lot better, and she's got height under Yan Xiaonan to make it a little bit easier to get under, and a longer reach. I think Verna Jandiroba's striking has come along a good way. She stays a lot safer, not being reckless. And if Verna Jandiroba does get on top, I think that's going to be a huge problem for Yan Xiaonan. I think a submission could come here. The question is, how good is Yan Xiaonan's footwork going to be? That's the real question to me, because Yan Xiaonan can cause a lot of damage, and she can throw straight shots, a nice good straight down the middle, and it could really hurt Verna. That's probably the case scenario for Yan winning, but I think Verna's going to be able to, she's got a great chin. She's going to be able to get through any initial damage in the first round. I think she's going to really tire out Yan Xiaonan and try to put on a pace in the first round. So I'm going to go with Verna Jandiroba, probably by submission. That's how I'm feeling. Where Zhang Wei Li is more so like a more of a ground and pounder, but will go for submissions like when we saw against Carla Esparza, and that kind of let you know how good Zhang Weili's grappling really was. Yeah, I'm not gonna have a lot of faith in Yan Jianan kind of developing those skills in that time, because I don't really rate Tabitha Ritchie that high either, to be honest. So Verna Jandiroba here, probably a good bet, to be honest. I think this momentum that Verna Jandiroba is riding is going to be pretty darn good. And if you compare Tabitha Ricci to recent competition, I think Amanda Lopes is probably a little bit higher on the scale, in my opinion. Wait, I just want to make sure. Tabitha Ricci and Amanda Lopes haven't fought, right? I don't think that's... Did they fight? Yeah, no, they haven't even fought. All right. I didn't want to, accidentally MMA math myself. Okay. Next, Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. Another tough fight to predict, and honestly, I'd also put Sean Woodson as the favorite here, because if you're Dan Ige, you're hoping on a power shot landing, or you're hoping on your grappling succeeding with Sean Woodson, and I think both those things are very unlikely. A lot of advantages here for Sean Woodson. Obviously he's an incredibly talented boxer. Very defensively sound. Leg kicks could be a problem for him. Dan Ige's got good leg kicks. But the grappling is what's concerning me, and the fact that Dan Ige doesn't have the tools that I think he needs to kind of pull that off. Obviously it's going to be very hard for, as you can see, for Sean Woodson to get any sort of finish here. But I think that kind of plays into Sean Woodson probably getting a win here. Sean Woodson isn't really a guy who's been finishing a lot of people lately, if I remember correctly. He got a recent one in his against Padilla, but before that, 3 decisions and split decisions to Luis Saldana. These are a lot longer guys. Charles Jourdain, he's I think 5'8", 5'9", 5'9", and then Alex Caceres, I think, is 5'10", 5'11", or something. So yeah, this is completely different. These guys are going to give Sean Woodson a bit of a harder time. A guy like Dan Ige, Sean Woodson's going to be able to keep him on the end of on most of his strikes. That's just how I feel. He's going to be able to roll with Dan Ige's shots that are coming in, and it's going to be a long night for Dan Ige. He's probably going to be chasing Sean Woodson around a good bit. So I'm going to go with Sean Woodson here. I think we're going to see a new contender finally break into that top 15, and we're going to see him. I think we're going to get him a good ranked opponent up next. So we'll see. Next, we got Nikita Krylov, the man who's been missing, the man we all thought was dead. We didn't know. We didn't know where this man was. Going against Dominick Reyes, the man who has finally redeemed himself after there was nothing in between the Dustin Jacoby win, right? I'm not crazy. Oh, yeah, that's right. Anthony Smith. I just memory hold that because that was a weird... Yeah, that was depressing. I think that's probably why I black-told it. But the Dustin Jacoby fight is more so what I'm going to be looking at here. I think a lot of people are calling Dominick Reyes KO here, and I tend to agree with that. Krylov's lost to Yan. He's lost to Glover Teixeira. I think once Krylov just enters that top division, he's just not defensively sound enough. And that's not what you want to be against a guy like Dominick Reyes. Dominick Reyes is going to make you pay once that big shot lands. And Krylov, as sad as it is, which how long has it been? It's been pretty long. It's been a long time. It's been 2023 and March 11. Yeah, I have little faith that long of a layoff is going to be good for him. That timing is going to be weird. Dominick Reyes is going to come in swinging. And I hate to say it because I like Krylov. I think he's incredibly entertaining. This is one of those fight of the night contenders I was talking about. I think fight of the night you got a possibility of it being Darren Elkins, Julian Erosa. You have a possibility of being Krylov Reyes, Rodriguez Pitbull, Mitchell Silva could be, like, all of the main card actually could be a fight of the night. Like, depending on how long it stays before a finish happens. Any of these, I think, could be a fight of the night, depending. So, that being said, I think Reyes' boxing is going to be better because I think Krylov is just not as defensively sound as I would like him to be. So I'm going to go with Dominick Reyes, and he is actually the favorite here. He's the underdog. Yo, this is good money here. Did not even realize that. We got another underdog in the car. All right, hey, there you go. Yeah, definitely going to go with Reyes there. Next, we got Yair Rodriguez versus the man making his UFC debut against not a great matchup for him, to be honest. Patricio Pitbull coming in at 37 years old, finally coming into the UFC against Yair Rodriguez. And I'm going to tell you this now. After watching the Sergio Pettis fight, I mean, Yair Rodriguez is an even wilder, more dynamic version of Sergio Pettis. I saw the kind of kicks that Sergio was landing in that fight, and that's a bantamweight. You got a guy like Yair Rodriguez who is going to be landing even harder, even faster, and from a lot different angles, a lot more challenging angles. And it's not just the kicks either. We saw in the Max Holloway fight, Yair Rodriguez, once he throws that too, that thing is like a piston. Oh my gosh, that thing is scary. Okay, Max ate it on the chin, but this is an insane reach disadvantage here of almost 6 inches. Yeah, Patricio, 37 years old, coming against one of the fastest, most dynamic guys in the featherweight division. It's a great test to prove. You know, this is a good way to see if all of he's talking about is like, if I was in the UFC, blah, blah, blah. It's a good test to prove it because we know of Yair Rodriguez's holes, mostly being the fact that he can be taken down very easily. It almost seems like you can ragdoll him from what we've seen. And he can be submitted. But I don't think a guy like Patricio Pitbull at this point in his career is the guy to do that. I think Yair Rodriguez, I don't want to say this is an easy win because it's never an easy win, but I think this is just a super winnable fight for him. Any head kick he throws up here, Patricio is going to have to address it and block it. It's just gonna keep him so occupied the whole time. It's gonna make it really hard for him to get started, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Yair Rodriguez on that. Tough debut for Patricio Pitbull. Would have honestly a Calvin Cater I think would be way more appropriate. And then you see if that translates to maybe him going to the next step. Maybe even a Giga Chikadze would have been a lot better for Patricio. But yeah, this is a tough one. I'm going to go with Yair. Next, we got the people's main event, all right? Who wants to watch a neo-Nazi get knocked the fuck out? I do. All right? That was some wild shit Bryce said, and I ain't cool. I don't give a fuck if he's a good guy. It's fucked up. It's super fucked up what he said. Like, you can't slice it any other way. He straight up said Hitler was trying to get the greedy Jews out of his country. Like, that's insane. You can't say that. That's fucked. That's so fucked. Now, if he would have maybe been like, no, actually, I can't even justify anything. I was trying to give him any sort of slack I can give him. I don't think he's actually a hateful person. I think he's just dumb. I think he's really dumb. I think he's really fucking stupid. But he's a good fighter. He's actually a good fighter. He's a great fighter, even. The Ilia Topuria fight, I think, gives a lot of people pause because of how badly he was beaten. But he was doing good in that fight. And that it's just that Ilia Topuria's just got an insanely well-rounded game with power, with speed, with defensive awareness. Like, Ilia is a tough matchup. So I try not to weigh that too much. Because John Silva, my dude John Silva, hoping he knocks him out, obviously is not at that same wrestling level as Ilia, with the takedown defense, with the grappling reversals. Whenever Bryce did try to grapple back, the way that Ilia pulled that over-under and just flopped him over, just ragdolled him over, that's tough. I don't think John Silva is going to have that level. That being said, Bryce is going to have to be even more tentative whenever he's entering. Maybe not as tentative as he had to be with Josh Emmett, because the thing with Josh Emmett and why Bryce Mitchell wasn't able to just start grappling immediately is because Josh Emmett's got that wrestling background, and that's what makes him so dangerous. That's why he can knock everyone out, is because he's got that wrestling in his back pocket to rely on, and to help defend takedowns. John Silva doesn't necessarily have that to that level. This is an insane line, by the way. This line makes no sense. If anything, I'd actually put Bryce at a slight favorite over John Silva. It's because of the recent knockouts and Bryce Mitchell's losses that we're seeing what we're seeing. So I don't really like these odds. These are not good odds to bet John Silva on. It's good odds to bet Bryce Mitchell. That's not who I'm picking, though. I'm picking John Silva because I need as much energy into the universe as I can to make this KO happen. Because the world needs this KO. The world as a whole needs this KO to happen. So, John Silva, KO, hopefully the first round so we can get to the next fight. So, that's what I'm predicting. It's more so what I'm hoping. But it's a tough one. This is a lot of Silva fans might be really disappointed. This is a risky matchup for him. Risky matchup because Bryce Mitchell is going to get going. Once he gets to the ground, he's going to go straight to threatening. He's going to go straight to threatening Silva with something. I think back to all those times that Bryce Mitchell spammed twisters on that one dude. And that was tough to watch. We could see something like that, but John Silva's got good enough takedown defense, so we may not see that. We know what he's going to be working this whole camp. We know. So hopefully we can just rely on that. We'll see. Next we got Michael the Cheater Chandler versus Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. Oh, his nickname's Iron, my bad. 38-year-old. Guys, he's less than a month away from being 39. Why does everyone think he's going to beat him? I don't get it. I don't get it. He got a flash knockout of Dan Hooker in his debut, got knocked down by Tony Ferguson, and knocked him out. Otherwise, he just is a wild man in there. It's hard for me to believe that he's going to keep composure. Maybe at this point in his career where he's like, I actually do need to keep composure to win a fight here and not just throw the game plan out the window. Maybe that happens. Maybe that's what we see here. Even if that does happen, I think from what I saw with Chandler against Oliveira, something I noticed is Chandler was super duper scared of getting like backed up to the fence by Oliveira. Literally running away off the fence to make sure Paddy or Oliveira couldn't get him up against the fence, because the wrestling, Oliveira, once he gets you up against that fence, his wrestling, man, with those body locks are something else. I don't think Paddy's that same level, but I think Paddy saw where you can find openings on Chandler because of the Oliveira fights. That's what I'm thinking here. I do think Oliveira does a much better job with his Muay Thai style of closing, or not closing distance really, but pressuring people to back up, where how he keeps that high guard and, not super head movement. Charles Oliveira, he doesn't have a lot of it, but the way he throws his front kicks out and the way he throws his punches out and his slow movement forward gets people backed up to that fence to a point where then he can initiate that grappling. It's just the question is, can Paddy do something similar? Can he get on top of Michael Chandler and hold that position? Because it's hard to tell. I see Michael Chandler do really well getting takedowns in fights, and I see him do decently well defending when he's got his back taken, and sometimes even reversing the back take. It's just, I think Paddy Pimblett is actually a lot stronger than Charles Oliveira. He's got a lot more strength to his grappling. So I think it might even be a little bit harder for Chandler to kind of scramble out of these positions. I really think it's going to be. Coming off a bad knee injury, at least from what the videos showed, when he was showing it off afterwards, Chandler. But you got to remember, he does have the cheating advantage. Chandler is more than willing to cheat, and refs are not willing to take away points anymore, it seems. This is also 5 rounds. We haven't seen Paddy in 5 rounds. What are we going to see him in the 4th and 5th? And that's why it makes it really, honestly, really super difficult to determine this fight. These are good odds. I think these are on the money. I question the age of Michael Chandler and the fact that he got so injured in the Oliveira fight. I think that could happen again. I think he could get injured by something silly in the fight again, honestly, and that's going to derail him over the 5 rounds, especially with how wild Paddy fights. A lot of chaos and a lot of opportunity for Michael Chandler to get really hurt in that way. I think Paddy's going to win. I really do think Paddy's going to win. This is their strategy, I think, for Paddy to get him up those rankings as fast as possible. Similar to Chase Hooper, similar to Sean O'Malley. You know, it is what it is. Predatory matchmaking, but this isn't that predatory. Michael Chandler can handle himself pretty well, but they want to give Paddy the best chance possible to get up the rankings. So for me, that's why I gotta go with Paddy. I gotta go with Paddy here. I think Michael Chandler loses this fight. He fights Gamrot next or something. Yeah, that's how I feel. Or they make the Patrice. Look, this is what happens. This is what happens, guys. Michael Chandler loses this fight. Patricio Pitbull loses his fight. They fight at lightweight. That's what happens, guys. Either that or they get Chandler on Gamrot or Fiziev. That's truly how I feel about these matchups. I think that's how it's going to go, and in the future. So it is what it is. Next, we got our main event. Volkanovski trying to reclaim that featherweight belt versus Diego Lopes. God, I love me Diego Lopes. I love Diego. He's so dope in so many ways. Oh, but I don't think he wins. I don't think he wins. I think out of all the fighters that Volk has gone against, besides Ortega, the submission threat, if Volkanovski decides to take Diego down and get on top, is probably going to be at its highest danger level. Mainly because I don't think Diego is going to take as much damage as Brian Ortega did before grappling was starting to be initiated. So I think Diego's going to be a lot more fresh if the takedown does come and he ends up on bottom. I think he's going to be a lot more aware. The only thing that does give a lot of people pause is the fact that Lopes seemed to have been fading at the end of the Ige fight. And that's something that we know Volkanovski does not have any problems with. Volkanovski, if anything, that's where he thrives, is going into those 4th and 5th rounds. He can carry so deep into a fight and still be throwing at the same speed, moving with the same kind of footwork. And I think that's what we're going to see here too. I think we're going to see a Volk who has got a much more favorable matchup. And the combo that Diego Lopes got Brian Ortega with, Volkanovski just does not enter that recklessly. The way Brian Ortega threw that double jab coming in, hands were down. It was like a double flick jab, bop, bop. Whereas like the jab hand was not coming back at all. And the rear hand was super low. So he was begging to be countered in that moment. That's not Volkanovski. Volkanovski's going to get leg kicks off early. He's going to get jabs off early. He's going to be faster on the footwork. Diego's going to be... I think he's going to try and... I feel like Diego's going to need a finish early, if anything. I think that's what we're seeing here. I'm surprised honestly, at how close these odds are. The style matchups, maybe because of the submission threat being so good for Diego, that's why they're kind of having a little bit more confidence in him. Because his bottom submission game really is good. The way he was able to, I think in his second fight, jump that flying triangle into the armbar was really good. He kept control of that hand really well and was adjusting the triangle really well throughout. I thought that was very slick stuff. I don't think that's going to be a threat that's going to come up for Volkanovski very well. I think he controls and flattens people out really well on the ground, and he ground and pounds intelligently. We saw that in the Yair fight, who also has a decent bottom submission game. He's a little bit like he is on the feet, a little bit reckless, kind of going for finishes rather than position. But Diego, a little bit higher level in that respect, so it makes it a little bit more dangerous for Volkanovski. That being said, though, I think the footwork, I think the speed, I think the game plan is going to be all on the side of Volkanovski. So that is who I will be going with for this main event. Let me know what you guys think. What you guys think I got right. What you guys think I got wrong. Please comment below. Do not forget to leave a like. Do not forget to sub if you haven't subbed. I will be on this Friday for LFA 206. We'll be hanging out watching some fights there. And I'm going to try and get on that UFC 314 and stream that as well. That would be super fun. This is one of the best pay-per-views they put together with like a ton of fights that fell through. Let me just point that out as well. Fizzled, Gilbert Burns, Michael Morales. That's a great fight. Pantoja, Kai Kara France fizzled. Probably getting moved to June. Michael Chandler, Armin Sarukian fizzled too. That was supposed to be something initial. I don't really count that though. Then we had these two. We had Jeff Neal, Carlos Prates. Neal had to withdraw. And even with that, still, fantastic card. Early prelims are great. Like, these are good, like, early prelim names. You got a contender series guy. You got a knockout artist, bantamweight. Marco Tulio. You got Mitch Raposo from the contender series, and Sumudaerji is a great matchup. You got Cedric Dumas, who's trying to keep building that up against a really good vet. So we even got good early prelims, and the prelims, awesome prelims. Then, great main card. So we'll see how it goes. You guys, take it easy.